Okay, Ben. In this tutorial, we're going to be looking at topic 18 from the study guide. Now, this is called Reaching Out, Cross-Cultural Interactions. So, what this entails is looking at European exploration of the globe, okay, between 1400 and 1800. So, really, European exploration of the globe in the early modern period. So, by 1500, people throughout the world had built pretty well organized societies with distinctive cultural traditions. There were powerful agricultural societies that dominated most of Asia, the Mediterranean basin being down here, of course, and Europe, and much of sub-Saharan Africa, and Mexico, and the Andean region down here. So by 1500, people of the world had also established intricate transportation networks that supported travel, communication, and exchange. So the point is, at the early modern period, people were already communicating across large distances and exchanging. Um, but these were pioneered by merchants in the interests of trade, and they allowed diffusion of religion, food crops, animal stocks, and disease pathogens. Which, of course, um, disease pathogens, of course, was very, very important in the 13th century with the Black Plague, of course, which decimated a huge amount of the Europe's population at the time. So, so by 1500, people were already doing this, but um, it became more intense after 1500. So beginning in the 15th century, so the 1400s, European mariners established trade routes linking the lands of the Indian, the Atlantic, and the Pacific Ocean basins. This fostered direct contact between the people of the Eastern Hemisphere and the Western Hemisphere and Oceania. So the establishment of the links between the world's regions and people gave rise to the early modern area of world history between about 1500 to 1800. So I guess a good place to start is looking at how 1500 in terms of how 1500 to 1800, kind of this early modern area, was different to the period from um, so 15 verse 1000 to 1500. How they were different. So there was only sporadic contact between people of the Eastern Hemisphere and the Western Hemisphere and Oceania in 10 to 1500. Um, and also, uh, of course, here we have heavy industry in its beginnings, powerful weapons, we have the gunpowder revolution, the military revolution going on in Europe during this period as well, and of course we have the Enlightenment age and scientific revolution. And yeah, the technologies, of course, in the scientific revolution, we get the technologies of transportation and communication that enabled the steamship, telegraphs, and that enabled people of European ancestry to pretty much achieve political and economic domination of the world. So, in the Americas and Oceania, for example, diseases introduced in this time, 15 to 1800, led to collapse of the whole societies. And Europeans benefited from this, of course. They claimed vast stretches of land in the Americas, where they founded colonies and cultivated crops for sale on the open market. In sub-Saharan Africa, we get slavery. And meanwhile, East Asian, so Chinese and Japanese and Islamic peoples in the Middle East, they prospered from increased trade, but restricted the introduction of foreign ideas and technologies into their societies. So Europeans, they benefited from global processes, the global trade in that, from 15 to 1800, but by no means did they dominate the world in this time. It was after this time they came to dominate the world, and we talked about this with the growth of the empires in the 1800s. So they were kind of starting after the Industrial Revolution started in the early 1700s, but by no means were they dominating in this time, or this time either. But yeah. So they played a more prominent role in world affairs than any of their ancestors, and their efforts helped foster the development of an increasingly independent world. But it was after 1800 that they dominated, yeah. So that's the introduction. So in the early modern period, equipped with advanced technologies and a powerful military arsenal, Western European peoples began to cross the world's oceans in large numbers during the early modern era. Russian adventurers also, Russia is of course in Eastern Europe, built an enormous Eurasian empire and ventured a little bit into the Pacific Ocean. So I guess a key difference is that there has always been cross-cultural interactions, even before the early modern period, of course, as we talked about. But only Europeans linked the lands and peoples of the Eastern Hemisphere, the Western Hemisphere, and Oceania. Oh, lands and people. Okay, only Europeans did that. And because of that, European people benefited from unparalleled opportunities to increase their power, wealth, and influence. And as a result, after 1500, European people became much more prominent in the larger world than they had before. As we said, they didn't dominate till after 1800, but the expansion of European influence resulted in the establishment of global networks in transportation, communication, and exchange. A worldwide diffusion of plants, animals, diseases, and human communities followed European ventures across the oceans and eventually gave birth to a global economy. So I guess if we were to do a timeline of important events, and cross-cultural interactions and European exploration in the period from 14 to 1800. 1492, we have Chris Columbus. First voyage into the Western Hemisphere. Okay, so he sailed to the Americas. (1497 to 1499). We have Vasco da Gama's first voyage to India. Vasco. (1519 to 1522). We have Ferdinand Magellan's circumnavigation of the world. (1565 to 1575). We have the Spanish conquest of the Philippines. And 1768 to 1780, James Cook, Captain James Cook, voyages in the Pacific Ocean.